An extremely overlooked part of achieving your goals is the habits you need to form to reach those goals. And what I mean by this is that these are things you need to reprogram your mind, your body, and your routine to incorporate daily so that you can slowly inch towards the things you want to achieve. Think of a good example as when you were brought up, and as a child, your parents taught you to brush your teeth in the morning and after every meal and before you go to bed. What was the goal of that habit? The goal of that habit is to have healthy teeth so that you don't have to go to the dentist or lose all your teeth by the time you're an adult, right? And that is a great example of something that now you do without even thinking. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you have a meal, you brush your teeth, you go to bed, you brush your teeth, right? And that habit is totally ingrained in your daily routine, and it prevents you from getting cavities, losing your teeth. So the goal you've achieved is to have a nice smile and to have a healthy mouth. Now, I think this is a very important concept where you can take the habits building process and apply it to every single thing. I think an example that's near and dear to my heart is if you want to get in shape, right? You want to build the habits of actions or gestures or things that can help you get to that goal of getting in shape. So an example is, you want to walk 10,000 steps every single day. You want to exercise, either it be running, either it be a sport, either it be yoga, either it be strength training at least 3 times a week. If you're able to build the habit of having the 10,000 steps, doing the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times a week exercise, and you do that for long enough, you have then built the habit, you have ingrained the pattern to get you to your goal of being healthy. And that can sometimes, for some people can take months, for some people can take years, for some people they struggle with it for decades. But really what you should be focusing on is, how can I build the habit that will allow me to achieve my goal? I think another really good example of this is if you're trying to learn a language, right? If you're trying to acquire a new language and you don't have the habit of practicing, if it's not daily, every second day, and learning new words, repeating the words you already know, learning grammar, practicing with people, listening to shows or movies in the language you're trying to learn, or even like starting to read books. If you haven't built the habit of, I need daily practice to be able to learn this language, you're not going to be able to put enough effort through enough time to get to that goal. I think another very good example is if you're trying to build a business, right? What are the habits of a successful businessman? And identifying those habits, working on them, and trying to develop them is something that you need practice at. And I think it's really, really important to think about these things as just another tool in your skill set. Just the way you see public speaking as an asset, something that you need to develop, or the ability to cook, for example. That's something that can help in your life. That's something you need to develop, you need to practice. I also think you need to practice the ability to develop the right habits to get you to your goals. I think the first place you need to start is, what are the habits I need to develop for my specific goal? Identify those, write them down, be realistic, right? You can't just take the habits of somebody else, someone that is way ahead, that has already accomplished the goal, and try to copy them from day one. You need to prioritize. You need to start with probably the most basic things first. I think in the example of exercises, get your daily steps. Make the changes to get your daily steps. You don't have to go in all out and strength train for like 6 days a week, completely change your diet. No, start with the habit of getting in your steps. And then you can work in, all right, I will start the habit of having a healthy diet every single day. That's the second habit to get me to my goal. list out all these habits, figure out what are the most important ones, what are the ones that are the easiest to achieve. Try to look at like what's the lowest hanging fruit, what are sort of the smallest changes I can make and get the biggest bang for my buck in terms of getting closer to my goal. List those out and start practicing them daily. I think if you do this long enough, you realize that you've actually gotten very good at building the right habits to get you to where you're looking to go. You will see these things start bleed out into other aspects of your lives, into your relationships, into your work, into if you have a business, into sort of your personal life and your intimate life. I think building these habits is extremely powerful, and you don't have to necessarily choose something extremely aspirational or I need to build a multi-million-dollar business. No, it can be as simple as I want to have a cleaner home, right? What are the habits you need to build so that the space that you live in is clean and presentable? If that's not the case, you can start with simple things like I need to clean the bathroom every few days or every week. I need to sweep and mop and dust every few days or every week. Those are things that for some people might seem like yeah, that's a given. Like you should have the habits to have a clean space, but for some other people that's not something that they live in, that they experience, and you can start at a very simple place where the stakes are extremely low. If you see that you have trouble forming habits, start somewhere easy. Pick the place that you can actually make progress on, because another part of this is you need small wins along the way. If you're doing something, working on something, and you don't get any gratification, I'm not speaking about like tomorrow I need to see a drastic change. No, but within weeks or months, you should get some sort of feedback. You should have some sort of result that will boost you, that will keep you going, that will sort of, positively reinforce, all right, I have built this habit, what is the next one? And you will see yourself slowly inch towards your goal. And this will keep you engaged, right? No one enjoys doing something without getting something in return. I think that is extremely important, but all of that unfortunately lies on your shoulders. You need to choose a goal, an area where you can dedicate enough time and you can break it down into small steps, form those habits along the way, and get that positive reinforcement from the results, right? You can't go and say I want to be a world-class sprinter or I want to be a chess grandmaster in 1 year, right? That is an unrealistic goal. So you really have to be honest with yourself, honest with what you want to accomplish, and honest with what is important to you. How do you see success? How do you see it being fulfilling in your life? And really sit down and think about it, because some of these habits you will form will remain with you for the rest of your life. And I really think this isn't something that can only be done when you're young, or necessarily has to be like in your 20s and your 30s. I think this is applicable to anybody, right? There's been studies, for example, for older adults, seniors in their 70s, 80s, that had never trained in their life, started strength training, and they saw increases in bone density, in muscle mass in their 70s, right? And that is a habit that they never had, but they were able to stick to it, do it for long enough, and see results even at such a late age. And you see a lot of examples of this, people picking up things later in their life and being able to get to sometimes very, very impressive results. But really, the key to this is build the right habits so that you can slowly progress towards your goal. I think if there's one thing I'd like you to sort of retain from this video is that try to analyze your past, your current life, and try to see where were you successful in building the right habits to get you to your goals, to get you to make a change in your life, to get you to accomplish something. Look at it, think about it, identify what these things are. See, okay, how can these habits be repurposed towards some other goal? I think that could be probably the easiest step for you to start. Is what are the habits I have built that I can actually apply to the thing I'm trying to accomplish, either be in my personal life and my professional life. You can repurpose these, right? And this is the power of great habits. Is you, for example, are really good at getting to bed at a certain time, having a good nighttime routine, getting your, according to me, 8 to 9 hours of sleep, which I think most people need, and getting up early, being refreshed, and having a great productive day, right? That is a great habit, and that is something that you can take and you can apply to other parts of your life. That type of dedication, that type of approach. So, look around you. I think another place that you can get inspiration from is people in your life, family members, loved ones, friends, that have great habits, right? I think it is, especially if they're very close to you, it is very easy to see how they go about and how they manifest these habits, how they use them in the day-to-day life. You can even ask them, like, how were you able to develop this habit? What were the hard things? What were the easy things? How would you suggest that I go about approaching this? And you can really learn because you're so close to them, and hell, maybe you're very similar to them as well, right? You have similarities, especially with your parents or your siblings or some of your family members. Look at them, draw inspiration from them, ask them questions, and even use them to stay accountable to the habits you're building. I think it's very hard sometimes to keep ourselves in check, and that's why we need to sort of overshare what we're doing, what we're sort of want to accomplish, what our goals are, because we're really innately looking for some sort of positive feedback and someone to sort of say, you know what, you've made great progress, but still you have to work on this and you have to work on that. So I think if you really focus on habit forming as one of the key pillars in terms of accomplishing the things and the goals that you're looking to do, and you really work on that. Yes, work on those specific goals you're accomplishing, make progress, but make sure that you're cognizant. What kind of habits am I building? Am I making progress on them? Am I applying them to the other parts of my life? Because they are very cross-transferable. Really hone in on that, and you will really see how the habit forming is something that is repeatable and can really fast forward and make the whole progress towards the goals you're trying to achieve much, much easier and much more attainable, as long as you're building the right habits.